C-Greer. Man, it's good to catch up with you, man. Welcome to the Player's Perspective Uncensored podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. I'm happy to see all the good work you guys have been doing, and I'm excited to kind of chat it out, talk a little hoops. Let's get to it.
I appreciate it, man. First thing we always start off with, we asked our guests, being from Kentucky, man, big bourbon state. You ever tried bourbon?
Yes, I like bourbon. I got some over there in my little case, if you will.
Nice. I'm a big Woodford Reserve guy, double O guy, a little Maker's Mark here and there, man. Nothing like a nice.
Now you're talking. Yeah, I like that.
Nice little gentleman's drink, man, on the weekend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You go straight on the rocks with it, or you play with it a little bit?
You know what? I'll mix it on the rocks. If I'm making a cocktail, I might splash a little ginger ale in there. But most time I'm going straight up, man. Give me a double shot in the gentleman's glass and let's sip it out, man.
Man, we should have had a glass each right now with us when we're going through this call.
All right. That
might be part of the deal moving forward.
For sure. Well, let's hop into it, man. You're an NBA FIBA agent. Talk to me about a little bit of background to what made you want to become an agent and how'd you work up to becoming that?
Man, my background is probably very different than most people's path to becoming an agent, right? I never seek being an agent. I was at Michigan State playing ball, doing my thing, graduated in the engineering department. And things just kind of fell in line. One of my best friends, my roommate, Sean Respert, ended up being the 5th pick in the draft in '95. Was around the whole ideal of an agent, because of his agents, things of that nature, relationship. Eric Snow came out with us as well. We all kind of came out together. And so that was my first interaction with agents. And to be honest with you, it wasn't great. I didn't think highly about agents. But was coaching. Man, I was coaching high school in Michigan, Southfield Lathrop High School. Had a great high school program. That was a neighborhood program. Mike Chappelle went to Duke and some others, Reggie Butler, Greg Graves, Xavier, and Penn State, things like that. And exposure, right? We finished 15th in the country. One of my players didn't make a all-star game, which was the Magic's Round Ball Classic, which is ran by Sonny Vaccaro. I called Sonny Vaccaro to fuss at him. He, in turn, befriended me, which started our relationship in '95. That was the year Kobe played in the game. And from there, I just kind of had exposure. I was coaching AAU. You remember me in my AAU days.
Yeah, that's how we first met.
Yep, Michigan Mustangs, and then I also started a program, Michigan Hurricanes. And so we had tremendous success on that side. And because of the success, myself and Sonny Vaccaro and a guy by the name of Gary Charles, remember the Long Island Panthers? Yep. We just started taking on different tasks and doing different things. And so, of course, you had, ABCD camp, the Round Ball Classic, which was Magic's Round Ball Classic, which just became just the Round Ball Classic. And we just had other things going on, the big time and things like that. And so I became an NBA scout first. I worked with the Portland Trailblazers as a scout.
Nice.
My boss actually just passed away recently last month, Mark Workentine, who brought me on, gave me my first opportunity with Portland. And it was a transition period because he left Portland and went to Cleveland. And so it was, what's the next move? And Sonny is the one that kind of spearheaded it. He pushed the agent model. And he thought I could be kind of a mentor like I was as a coach in that agent space as well and have an impact on young men's lives. And at first I wasn't in agreement, but over some time, he convinced me. I'd already known Arn Tellem because he got Kobe Bryant out of the camp, ABCD camp. And he pushed the narrative of joining SFX Sports, which at the time, as you know, was the largest sports firm in the business. We had 10 basketball agents. It'd probably be comparable to most of the heavy firms around now. But at that time, we were number 1 and 2 and 3 in regards to size. They were if you put them together, they still would be a long two away. So
Right.
it was large. It was a conglomerate. David Falk, Arn Tellem,
Dad.
yeah, Thad Fouché, who's
Yep.
still an agent now. Bob Myers, the president of Golden State Warriors. Yep. Rob Pelinka, president of the Lakers. Arn Tellem is now the chairman of the Pistons. Most people will know Falk because of Michael Jordan,
yep.
with the Jordan tapes recently.
The young guy at Denver now. He's the president now at Denver. I can't think of his name. He was like a little kind of like an errand boy for SFX back when I was coming out, but he's like higher up in Denver's franchise now.
Yeah, he's that was Arn Tellem's son's best friend, Ben.
Yeah, Ben.
Yep, Ben's with Denver. Yep. So so that's kind of how I got on that path. It was really pushed through Sonny, and it was the opportunity to kind of mentor as well through the agent model.
Nice. So in 2005, when I was coming out, Roll was out there, you was out there in the gym. At that point, were you still with Portland? Were you an agent, or what was your status in 2005? Because I remember you around the gym when we used to come out and work out with Robe. You had Olu Famatini. What was your status then?
Yep. You were with Higgins, right?
Yep, Mike Higgins.
Mike Higgins was also with.
Yep.
Right. Mike was out of Vegas, and Higgins was initially out of Falk's original office, the DC office. So I was an agent. I had Martell Webster in that draft.
Yep, Martell. Yep.
It was actually sixth pick. And I worked with Ike, who was the 9th pick in that draft, 8th or 9th pick in that draft. Yep. And I had Roberson as well, who went undrafted, but ended up making by the Grizzlies. So yes, I was with SFX then when you were coming out. You were at Higgs, and we had a great draft. I mean, we had the 1st pick, the 6th pick, the 8th pick, the 12th pick.
Yeah, a lot of.
Yeah, we had a good draft. You Roll, Daniel Ewing, Sean May, Ike Diagu, Martell Webster. Who was the number 1 pick?
Big fella out of Utah, Andrew Bogut.
Bogut. We had Bogut. That's right.
Yeah, Bogut.
Yep. That was a good draft for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as an agent, what are you in charge for? What is your role for the guys when you're an agent? What's your job and title of? Everybody thinks, well, I just negotiate and get the players' money, but it seems like it's more than that. Like you said, it's a mentorship too. What is your role and title?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So when I was at SFX, the dynamics of every firm is different. And at SFX, it was a conglomerate. It was humongous, right? So in that setting, you may have multiple people working for an individual, and so you can focus on particular areas. Because of who I am, I'm always mentor. Just as a Black male, I'm gonna always add that aspect. I think that's important. Every agent doesn't think that though. Every firm is different. Every agent is different. Everyone doesn't view it as a mentorship. And to be honest with you, when I went there at SFX, the mindset there was not that. It was, this is a business. Do the work, get in, get out, go from there.
Right. So
the majority of the larger ones, I believe, and I could be wrong in some scenarios, think like that, just strictly business. But even at SFX, we had many people that play different roles. But ultimately, your job as an agent is exactly that. It's to get your clients their job. So as a basketball agent, it is, in the draft process, work towards getting them drafted and getting them employment. So technically, that's what you actually get paid for. That's what your agent fees are paid for. But several other agents like myself, boutique now, wear different hats, where you may fly in with them, make sure that they're set up, make sure that they're getting comfortable with the team. Some scenarios you may help them find a place to live. Make sure that you'll sit at interviews with them and help them decide on a financial advisor and maybe a manager, an attorney, if you will. So there's various roles as an agent. You can wear many hats, but ultimately, technically, your job is exactly that, just, finding them employment.
Right. Now, have you expanded into other sports, or are you still now just strictly basketball?
I'm certified in basketball, and I'm also certified by FIFA in soccer as well.
Oh, nice.
I have dabbled in some other areas, just kind of on a marketing or a managing side,
Mm-hmm.
with football players, girl basketball players, and I've actually I had just a couple different like athletes that were, track and field and things of that nature, but I just focused on marketing with those.
Right. Now, what's the earliest
Primarily basketball. Yeah.
you can pitch to a potential client of why they should sign with you know, Chris Luchey Sports?
Yeah. So, well, that's probably going to get us into another question. But you can you can't sign with an agent from representation until their collegiate career is over,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So they can't sign with you until their collegiate career is over. You can pitch from the standpoint of getting a relationship. I advise start building a relationship as early as possible. There is no timetable on when you should look to start building a relationship. And when you were coming out, athletes or basketball players could come out of high school,
Right.
which now they need to do 1 year of college, which may shift again with the new CBA coming up. But agents are in the gym, man. They're in the gym early. They're in the gym in high school. You got phenom scenarios where you may have kids 6'6" in middle school, 8th grade. They're building a relationship, trying to put things in play very early. So there's no timetable, particularly, and there's no law that says you can't communicate. But we're governed by the Players Association, and in that, we're not able to sign or promise anything or entice an athlete or a parent to sign based on anything monetary or influence, if you will, prior to them being in position to go pro.
Right. Now, you spoke earlier, you spoke about, first being around agents, and you said, I wasn't really feeling the field. And so a lot of times, sometimes agents can get bad reps, or just the field itself can have a bad feel to it, a bad, label when it comes to people on the outside who may not know necessarily the ins and outs of it. But now that you're on that side, why do you think it is that sometimes they can have that bad label and guess, or they're just a misunderstanding?
Yeah. Good question. Sharks, right?
Right.
It's sharky waters, I'll give you an example. And it's a glamorous looking profession. In basketball, for example, there's 450 NBA players.
Right.
There's 695 certified NBA agents. So there's more certified agents than there are actual NBA players. And about 15% of agents or agencies, if you will, represent over 85% of the NBA players.
Mm-hmm.
So it's competitive. That's the first thing. It's very competitive. And just people's nature. People tend to, when things are competitive and money and potential of lots of money and or fame, things can get grimy. And
Right.
so I think you get scenarios here and there that might one-offs, really. It's really just one-offs, and that give the profession a bad name. I think most in the business are solid individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be tough and competitive. And I'd say this: the most difficult issue with the business is agents are not really protected. And what I mean by that is your contract ends when you're fired. Like if your contract is terminated, the
Right.
last deal you've done, that's it. And so what happens is free agency is magnified in the on television and the internet and things like that. And so prior to free agency is one of the most heavy recruiting periods in the sports industry, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so to work for a client and not really reap the financial benefits early and potentially have that client taken from you, which happens a lot, may have people get out of character.
Right.
And I
So
think
let's
that's
take an
what
example.
happens.
The Thad, the agent we talked about that we both know earlier, him and Russell Westbrook had a public, outburst against each other, and he fired Thad, for whatever reason, things weren't going right. And so Thad had negotiated that contract to where he was making $45 million a year. So once he's fired, there's no continuation of, even though I negotiated that deal in the beginning, there's no continuation of a set amount that's guaranteed because you negotiated that whole contract.
Yeah, no, you get paid for that contract. So if you sign a deal, there was an agent, and he's passed away, Dan Fagan, you might be familiar with. Mm-hmm. Dan Fagan, when I was a coach, one of my players' clients went to him, Jason Richardson. And one of the things that he would do, he recruited, guys coming out of college initially, but he changed his whole model over the years to only recruiting free agents. He no longer wanted guys coming out of college, and he would recruit guys out of that were free agents. Matt Barnes was one of them, actually. And to give you a quick story, he would recruit somebody, promise something amazing. Let's say you are prepared, you're with your agent, you're happy, you want to stay loyal. Mm-hmm. Here comes Dan Fagan in there, big agent, got a lot of clients, have done some good deals. He come in and say, man, you should be looking at 100 million. You're looking at 55, 60 as you're talking to your agent. You're $100 million guy. I don't care what anybody says. Anybody telling you different, don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Switch your head a little bit, right?
Right.
Got you going. You fire your agent who feels solid with you on this 55, 60 million.
Right.
You go with Dan Fagan. It's free agency. Free agency goes like that. As you see, it's all over the internet every second. Woj, dropping Woj bombs every second.
Right.
You go with him, he brings you a deal for 55 million, 60 million. It's the same deal or less. You signed that deal because you're nervous and scared. You're pissed, but you signed that deal because you're scared of free agency and the money drying up. Mm-hmm. You don't want to pull back and run to your other agent because we have that 15-day window where you can't sign with another agent for 15 days. Nobody wants to do that in free agency, right? You sign that deal, but you fire him. The deal is over 5 years. Dan Fagan gets paid, or whoever. That agent gets paid for 5 years, whether you fire him or not. Okay. So he went around and he started plucking clients, making promises, whatever they wanted to hear, and would sign guys and do these deals. He'd get fired a year later, 6 months later, 2 months later, but he would still be having those deals.
But he was locked in.
So
once he did the deal, he was locked in.
He's locked in. In Thad's case, I know Thad's honorable guy. Him and Russ have been working together a long time. Mm-hmm. And so they probably just reached the peak of where their relationship could go. Things always happen when either somebody plucks your client, start filling your client up with fool's gold, or things get rocky. Things get rocky and somebody says, I would have had a better plan. Right. And so I believe, I don't know the details of it. Somebody came and said, things are a little rocky for you, Russ, hey, we could have a better plan for you. And maybe Thad was just kind of saying, man, we've been doing the right thing I've been your agent for 10 years. We've always done the right thing.
Right.
Let's not shift and do that thing because that's not who we are, per se. And, they had a nasty breakup.
Right. So now you got NIL in college now. How has that shifted things as far as being an agent and kind of the rules and regulations as far as, being a professional agent, but maybe dabbling into the college game? And have you thought about that?
Great question. So actually, I haven't promoted this much, but maybe in private conversations, I'm a part of the team, and we call it the father of NIL. Everyone knows that the NIL began with the Ed O'Bannon case. Mm-hmm. And that case was filed 12 years ago. But that case started with 3 people initially. Myself, well, I'm not going to lead, Sonny Vaccaro, Gary Charles, and myself. And it was a fight that Sonny had took on for years against the NCAA publicly because he had the voice and the platform that these kids should be getting paid. Right. And we were doing little things, little small lawsuits and things, and we helped the Northwestern football team attempt to file to be unionized. We were doing a lot of different things behind the scenes, and we were falling short because we didn't have an individual that checked all the boxes. And Ed O'Bannon heard Sonny speaking because we had Sonny going around. He was speaking at multiple colleges all over the country. And Ed O'Bannon heard him. And he's playing the video games and telling one of his friends, like, this is crazy. They got my life in this. And heard Sonny's like, who's this Sonny guy? I got to reach him. I won't forget it. And it's like, reached out to Sonny. And why was Ed so important? Well, he checked all the boxes. Prior to that, we didn't have a player that was willing to file that checked all the boxes. What do you mean? Okay. He won a championship. We needed somebody that played on the biggest platform in college, the March Madness, the Final Four, right? He did that, played in that, and was the most outstanding player in it. Check. He had a good career, right?
Great
Played
career.
all 4 years, right? Check. The player had to make it in the pros, because you didn't want somebody to say, oh, he was a great college player, but he didn't make any money in the pros. That's why he's suing. So, nope, he had a solid career in the pros. Check. He had to go to one of their NCAA darling schools. Went to UCLA.
Blue blood.
Check. Right? Blue blood. So, and was the outstanding player and was a good citizen, right? And was good. So he checked every box. So you couldn't say, well, he's just suing because he's fallen on hard times. He's suing because he went to Joe Blow's small college. He checked all the boxes. So, and then that thing grew, and Sonny was able to put together this incredibly massive legal team, and then that process started, and then brick by brick, it came down. Last year, when it took off, I didn't dive in because technically my name is somewhat affiliated with it. And I didn't know how it was going to go because nobody had a set of rules, right? It was just legislation kept popping up over the states, which is what we wanted. So I didn't really know how to navigate. And so I just actually jumped in it, started signing my first few clients this year, and excited about it. It's fun, it's exciting, it's good conversations. There's great opportunities out there for these athletes. I have a couple of things going that I'm not ready to announce just yet, but NIL is great. I mean, it's something we've been fighting about, talking about for over 20 years. So for me, I'm excited. I'm excited just because, it's just everybody's just being honest, right? It's like making so much money on these athletes, why not let them be a part of it? Now, as an agent, to answer that question, I think it's important to show what you can do. I think it's important to build a relationship with potential guys. It adds value for you to get to know them and not like, don't take this the wrong way, like sneaking behind the corners in dark alleys and in college dorms, if you will. You can kind of do everything out in the evening. So I think it makes it better for everyone. If everyone's honest, NCAA included, I think everyone would say that it's a good thing, and it should be. It should have happened a long time ago.
Now, I probably should have asked this before the NIL, but going back to young guys coming out, young phenom or young college players about ready to turn professional, and he's looking for an agent in the market for an agent, wants to turn professional. What are some of the things he should look for in an agent, and what are some of the red flags that he should look for in an agent?
Great question. Integrity. I think it starts with integrity. What happens is social media, media paints a picture of what everyone is. And people do a Google search, or they do a website, or they do whatever. And often just what you're able to find, just media-wise, is what you take as the gospel. And it's usually not. For instance, you mentioned that bad breakup with Thad and Russ, right? Well, Thad has represented, probably 100 players, right? And he's probably been fired by, I don't know, however many players, right? But the thing that comes up is Russ, because the public, right? Because it was public, made public. And so that story is what gets told. Whatever you get out of that, that is great, or that is not so great, or whoever. You're talking about someone else. And I think if you're a large agent, who you got? That's going to be magnified. What you're not going to see is the little guys that you didn't do a great job for, that you may not have cared about, that you handled poorly, they don't have a voice and a platform. So they seem like just a disgruntled ex-employee or ex-client. And I believe those are the ones you touch. Those are the ones that you get the truth. If you see the best athlete that any agent has ever represented, and you speak to them, more than likely, yeah, you've done a great job with them, because that's where the money was at. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you locked in with them. But if you got, some of these agents have 40 clients, go down the list and see how, Aaron Tellin was the president of SFX when you were there. You had how much conversation with Aaron Tellin when you were a client?
Many.
Very little, if any, right? Very minimal. And so that is, I think that's the first thing you need to look at, integrity. The second thing is, do they have the time? Do they have the time to service you? Are they servicing you, or is it a junior agency service? If it's a junior agent, that's totally fine. But they need to make sure you understand that up front, so that you're not under the impression, hey, I'm getting this guy on the line when anything goes, when actually it's this guy who may be perfect for you, but you have to judge, that decision based on his accomplishments, not his boss accomplishments, if you will. So I think that's also just.
And that's a testament to you too, man, because I've, finished my career playing in South America, and I see you make multiple trips. I know a few of your clients played against them a few years, Dartavius and a couple of other guys. And I constantly see you down in Brazil. I've seen you in Argentina a couple of times, constantly making trips on some of your international players too. So that's a big testament, man. And that's a big thing that people look up to. So you make great points of, it's easy to see the headliners, but, how are the little people treated? How do you treat them? Are you, catering to them, their needs as well? So, man, that's a testament to you as well, to that point.
Yeah, a story, I can tell you stories forever. Funny story. Do you remember Amir was in that draft?
Yeah, Amir Johnson was in that draft. Supposed to go to Louisville.
Okay, so I'm not gonna mention agents' names, but Amir was represented by one of our agents at SFX.
Yep.
And Amir was in Detroit. That's home for me.
Yep.
So every time I would go to Detroit, I would just go touch Amir. I had zero to do with him, right? I'm on the team. I'm one of many agents at SFX, but I would always touch him. Right. Every time I see him, he asked me, when is my agent coming to see me? I was like, I can't answer that. I'm here, part of the team. Well, that agent and other agents, often, one of the reasons why Aaron Tellin was pushing for me to come to SFX at that time was because there were a lot of agents that were unwilling to travel and go see and service the clients. They just wanted to do the deals. So you have a lot of agents that are in that space. Then you have some agents that just want to hang out and run around and partake in activities with them and don't really want to do the hard work, which is why you often see, like in the draft, when you see guys fall in the draft and they're projected top 10 and they go in the 30s, or they're, projected top 15 and they, drop to the second round, usually there's some malpractice, if you will, going on with their representation. I mean, our job is obviously to promote you, and we don't control teams, but ultimately we should be able to understand the scenario. To worst case scenario, don't be in the green room with a guy on national television projected to go top 15 and then be rubbing his shoulders as they're falling in the draft. So there's a lot of signs that you can look at. You just gotta, I think you have to do, it's like remember you do book reports in school? I think you have to do a full book report, if you will, on that agent. The same thing with a doctor. If you had an incredible surgery coming up, you would just go to the hospital and the guy speak, or the male or the female doctor speaks to you and tell you how great they are. You're going to ask about how many surgeries, past surgeries, what did they look like? What was the situation? What's different with their complication versus mine? You're going to inquire. And I think that often parents and athletes really just kind of get caught up in, I use this word and I hate it, they just get caught up in the hype and often don't make the best decision.
Two-part question, and I'll let you get out of here, Chris. The first thing is, now that you've been in the game and got some experience now, are you open to clients approaching you for representation, or do you kind of have your, like I'm hand select now, kind of pick and choose who I want to represent. And the next thing is, when you have a player and they have free agency or they're up for a contract, how do you determine, or how is their value determined? Not that you determine it. How is their value determined on the market? If you could just kind of touch on those two things.
I'm always open to clients. I get a lot of calls. I get a lot of referrals. I even get emails. I respond to every call and every email. Such and such player that has no business looking at the NBA but has a dream. I respond. I respond and I give them honest opinion, and I offer other scenarios to them. For instance, I'll tell them about different careers in sports that's not necessarily playing. So, hey, you got a passion for sports? Guess what? I started as a scout. I did this. There's all these other things. You have a degree. You just graduated. You're going to make some very small number overseas. Are you ready for that? That's a tough lifestyle. So I'll be honest. So I answer everyone. I am selective about who I want to work with. It has to make sense, just in all the areas. So that's that. Your second part, as far as value, it's a lot of different things. I mean, from an NBA standpoint, it's obviously it's on the floor, right? It starts on the floor. After that, it is how you are in the locker room and as an individual. You know, does your team win? Does your team like playing with you? Is there a future with you? Can we build? What is the direction of the team? Are we going younger? Are we trying to win a championship? Are we rebuilding? Where do you fit in those schemes? And then, you know, which get missed a lot is, how are you with the community? What is the community thought on you? Because, you know, the team have owners, if you will, president, we have a new term for it now, but how are you in the community? Because every NBA team is in NBA cities. And so it's important to have someone that adds value, because there's, you know, the team is selling that product to the community and all the businesses, from sponsorship, fans, and things of that nature. So I think it's important for you to have a foundation, to have a relationship, to show that you're not just here, you know, that you're not selfish, that you're team oriented, that you're community oriented, that you enjoy being in the city, right? I'm here in Atlanta. We've had some different things going on with some of our players, even with the ownership group. It's important, like the community wants to know that you're in it. So those areas, you know, you can find value and determine value. The other thing is, ultimately, is there somebody else that likes you? And as an agent, it's your job to create some level of competition, right? The team wants to pay you the least amount, the least market value that they can possibly pay, which is why restricted free agency is very tough. Because the team always says, you want a max deal? Go find somebody to give it to you. Now you as an agent have to find someone to offer that max, you know, so that the team can ante up and pay you. So you have to bring somebody else to the table. Nobody wants to get to unrestricted free agency. If you get there, then it lets you know that, you know, the team is not necessarily all the way impressed with their stance with you. Usually a team want to lock you up prior to getting to that point. So those are some just areas that you use as an agent to kind of help determine value.
Greer, man, appreciate your time, brother, man. Go back since, you know, middle school with Kelvin Tolbert and Matt Trannon coming down to Kentucky for basketball camp, man. So I really appreciate it, man. And anything I can do for you, man, I'm definitely here. And I just appreciate you taking our time, man, to come through on the podcast.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be on. I appreciate it. I'm proud of the things that you are doing and the legacy that you created. Just your passion for the game has continued. Who you are as a family man, what you're doing, giving back. The podcast is great. It's giving out a lot of good, positive information and helping athletes today, you know, figure out, you know, their journey, whether it's NBA or NFL or, you know, professionally, whether it's overseas, whether it's podcasts, whether it's working with a team, marketing, agents. There's just so many areas, physical therapy. There's so many areas that you can add value and continue that sports passion. So I'm happy to see you doing your thing, and I'm happy and honored to be a part of the podcast today. Thanks for having me.
already.